Hi, I'm Davi,
And I'm Carolyn.
and we're just two Asian women having candid conversations about whatever the hell we want to talk about with an intersectional flair.
That being said, today we're going to talk about growing pains, coming to terms with our own toxicity or stagnation, and how we overcame it. So get comfy and stick around. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Just Two Asian Women podcast. My name is Carolyn. I'm Laotian American. I'm 25, and I'm going to go to grad school soon.
Yay. Hi, everybody. My name is Davi. I'm 26. I'm Cambodian American, and I have 2 Fridays off this month. I'm so excited.
Fuck yeah. Memorial Day and
Memorial Day is on a Monday.
mm,
I'm taking a Friday off, so I'll have a 4-day weekend for one of those.
yay. We love that.
I'm exhausted because we're like teaching online and then they're coming in person. So,
If I can imagine if I had to work from home and then go to the office afterwards, oh my God, never. But today we're going to be talking about growing pains, which is not a medical condition. So growing pains, um, for me, it's defined as like a stage in your life where people are naturally changing, and hopefully these people or yourself are changing for the better. And it's kind of like when you come to a crossroads and you have to make kind of like a hard decision, and that decision usually means leaving a part of yourself or other people behind, or both.
yeah, I would agree with Carolyn's definition. I feel like I've experienced growing pains before when I've had to make a decision that was difficult and I couldn't either be in that situation and not be myself or be myself and not be in that situation.
Yeah, and letting go of things is like part of growing pains is like almost like a snake shedding your skin. So I don't know if it's actually painful for the snake, but the point is that they shed that skin and it may or may not be painful for them. But in our metaphor, let's say that it is painful. But
Mhm.
then they come out with fresh new pair of skin that's even shinier and plumper and harder than the last one. So letting go of things could be super painful. But because of it, you notice a considerable positive switch in your life, although you had to overcome that emotional turmoil.
Yes. And life is a constant rebalancing of things. And when you're trying to grow, you need to shed these old things or people from your life. I'm thinking, what are some significant growing pains you experience? And what lessons do you carry from that?
Yeah, so the first thing that comes to mind when I think of growing pains is friendship breakups, right? Because like especially ones that you have to uh catalyze yourself by actually breaking up with them. And I think about our episode on toxic friendships way back at the beginning of the podcast where I talk about it goes by the pseudonym Harry Potter. And I'm not gonna rehash everything that happened in the story, but basically Harry Potter, I consider Harry Potter to be a toxic friend. But the reason why Harry Potter was a toxic friend was because Harry Potter also made me a toxic person. And I realize that now because I always kind of like pined for Harry Potter's approval and affection, right? So because of that, like I have to acknowledge that being with Harry Potter made me a worse person, or at least a person moving in an opposite direction to the morals that I held. And there's this one instance in which I was being toxic with Harry Potter. And it was when Harry Potter wanted to unfriend a mutual friend. And I use that term lightly because Harry Potter did not like that person. It was when Harry Potter wanted to unfriend our mutual friend Snape on Facebook after I'd spilled some tea about Snape to Harry Potter. And Harry Potter was like, "Oh, I'm going to unfriend Snape, but if Snape ever comes up to me and asks me why I unfriended him, could I tell him it's because of what you said?"
Mhm.
And I was like, in my brain, the logic was, "Oh, yeah, I mean, I said what I said. Like, there's no need to hide it. Like, this is what has happened. So, yes, you should say that." And then Harry Potter was like, "Oh, I see you've chosen your side." And at that point, it's kind of like icky to think back on it now, but at the time, I felt a little bit proud that Harry Potter had said that because I'm like, "Oh, Harry Potter, my friend, I have his approval, you
Mhm.
know?" Um, but obviously, that was not cool because me literally talking shit about Snape behind Snape's back when I considered Snape to be a friend. And I think at the time, Snape also considered me to be a friend, you know?
Mhm.
So one thing happened, and then Snape texted me and he was like, "Hey, could you not talk about me to Harry Potter?"
Mhm.
And I was all like, "Oh, the thing happened." And I texted Snape back and I was all like, "Yeah, for sure." And that
That's
was that.
great.
It was actually pretty simple. Like it wasn't dramatic at all, but there's a notable shift in essentially our friendship ending between me and Snape because of that.
I
And I
see.
think reasonably so, because why the fuck would you stay friends with somebody like me at the time talking shit
Mhm.
to another person, fanning the flames of like their their current existing dislike for another person, right?
Mhm.
But again, all of that done so that I could gain the approval of this toxic person. And to gain the approval of a toxic person, you become toxic yourself.
For sure, right? Because then your approval is bound to their standards, and their standards are toxic.
Exactly. So it was unfortunate at the time. And even after I'd broken up with Harry Potter, which is part of that long story back in our toxic friendship episode, even after I'd broken up with Harry Potter, I was thinking about like Snape and what I did to him. And I was like, I don't want to talk to Snape because for me to talk to him would be to satisfy my own ego of repairing like the shit that I did to Snape. That's how I feel about it. It's like when an abusive, this might be a big jump, but it's like when an abusive boyfriend comes back to you several years later after they're not abusive anymore.
I
And they're
see.
like, "I'm sorry, I was abusive." And if that happened to me, I'd be like, "Oh my God, I never want to talk to you ever again. Leave me alone. I don't
Right.
care."
Mhm.
So I felt like it was the same case. And if we're using this metaphor, I was the abuser and Snape is the abusee.
Right.
And I was like, no, I can't talk to Snape. That would be a horrible decision because Snape should go live their best life because I've already made my bed.
Mhm.
And I need to live with that now and just move on with that.
Right. But in the case though, when you reached out to Snape, things were better than you expected, or that friendship
Well,
continued?
the thing about that is that I literally never
Oh.
reached out to Snape
Oh, I
after that.
see.
Snape reached out to me after some
Oh, I
time.
see, I see. So you were like, "No, I this is not right for me to just rekindle a friendship because you want to, even though you were the offender." Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so Snape actually reached out to me, which I thought was very gracious of Snape. And I replied since they initiated. And of course, when we hung out, addressed the elephant in the room because,
That's
like,
good.
that's so awkward to me just be there.
Is
And
it
I'm like, we
not?
both know why the friendship ended. So I think Snape and I are on pretty good terms now. And I always like remember that graciousness that Snape like extended to me.
Yeah,
You
for
know, like
sure.
Snape could have fully been like, nope, fuck them. Fuck them.
Right.
Reasonably so. You know what
Yes.
I mean? I think me reflecting on that moment and then letting go of Harry Potter, who I considered a best friend at the time, it was super painful because I was very comfortable. And, you know, like I said, I considered them my best friend. But at the same time, I'm grappling with, oh, I'm a worse person with this person. This person doesn't really uplift me or make me feel better. This person makes me want to do bad things and stuff like that. And our morals don't align either.
Yeah, that's tough. And I know you were talking earlier about that it was comfortable to stay with them.
Yeah.
And, it's easy to do that. And then luckily that friendship also crumbled and you were able to reflect on that. I'm happy Carolyn brings up this topic of growing pains because it was her idea. I feel like we all go through growing pains, but we don't really realize what it is until we apply language to it. So something
Mm-hmm.
that I realize now is growing pains was me and my family member. I don't want to specify, but he and I were really close. We grew up with each other entire lives, and when you're little, you it's acceptable to get into fights and
Mm-hmm.
be mean to each other and not really having repercussions, because we're kids, we don't know anything. However, as an adult, when I came back home, things were a little bit different, and I felt that he really disrespected me.
Oh, like
I
came back home from college.
Yeah, I came back home from college. It was my move, back from San Diego.
Okay.
Yeah, so it happened, like, last year in which we got in a really big argument in which he called me a hoe, and I got really upset because very misogynistic, and he knows where I am. He's a
Literally.
feminist. Yes, he knows exactly where I am, and it was just tough because prior to that, we have a love and hate relationship, and recently, he's become like he wants to become closer, and to me, that's a little bit difficult because growing up, kinda like love-hate relationship is kinda like, "Oh, it's a little weird, like, you wanna be close to me now? Can we just stay where we're at?" So we had a lot of tension built up prior to this incident when he called me that name, right?
Yeah.
But I put my foot down. I was so pissed. I was sleeping, and he had asked me to, like, for about this house chore, and I told him, "Hey, I'm sleeping. Can you just text me?" And he didn't reply back. And then things escalated, and then he shouted at me, and then I finally woke up and I screamed at him when he was leaving to work. I usually do not get upset, but I don't know what happened. I got his ukulele and I went outside and smashed it. I was so
Wow.
pissed.
That's hardcore.
Yeah, I was just it was everything built up and just my emotions got to me. But anyway, what I
Mhm.
decided to do moving forward was I messaged him and I was like, "Hey, like I don't want to talk to you anymore. Like do not talk to me." Um, I blocked him on Instagram and for months we did not talk. I think it was at least 6 months and we lived together. So, it was really awkward, but and he was like, "Oh, like, well, we need to at least communicate with each other, like, we're basically roommates." And I was like, "No, I don't need to communicate with you."
Yeah.
And it was just a growing pain because I came to the crossroad of, okay, I'm not just a younger family member anymore. Like, I deserve respect, and I'm not gonna take your disrespect because if I do, then he'll learn that it's okay and not holding it as we know, not holding somebody accountable, they're gonna continue their actions. So, it was a really hard thing to come to terms with. Well, not really. It was just hard to live with because every time we spoke, it, like, become an argument, and that was really annoying, and, like, my home is supposed to be my oasis, okay? So, it was just really tough living in that environment when I had to dodge him a lot or not really wanna be there or not be my true self and relaxed at home, and I really, really wanted to move out, but it's just the savings kept me here, you know?
Yeah. So do you feel like it was painful or difficult for you to let go of the dream or even the possibility of having a friendly relationship with that family member?
It was. I was definitely thinking about the future and what if I have kids and will it be a part of my life? Do I want them to be a part of my life? Yeah, I did. However, not in these conditions, you know? Like just I was thinking in my head, I was like, okay, well, a lot of my family noticed that we weren't talking. They're like, hey, you need to talk to them because I'm the younger person. And I said, no, that's not how it goes.
Yeah.
And my uncle even said, Davi, you're getting older, you're gonna have families. Like, how are you just not gonna have him in your life? Like when you have a family, like you're gonna have your own family, and soon you're gonna go separate into your own. So basically, telling me I need to make amends because we might not have a future relationship anymore, and that definitely weighed on me. But as the stubborn Aquarius as I am, I was like, no, it can take 10 years. I don't care.
Mhm.
I need an apology and I need to be respected because what's the point in 10 years down the line and I'm still being disrespected. I don't care.
Yeah.
So a few months I was grappling with it because of course people give you their unsolicited advice, but I've come to accept it. It took like 2, 3 months. It helped me a lot talking to my friends and Larry because Larry went through something really similar to that. And he's like, no,
Mm.
do not talk to him. You need to stay firm. And I did.
Yeah. I like that. You do have to stay firm because people will always try to like just you give them an inch and they take a mile, you know?
Right.
And that's so true. So staying steadfast will help amplify your message. And they're like, oh shit, she's actually serious about this.
Right? And I do wanna admit that I was toxic in ways too. Whenever we talked, I always sound annoyed. I had a tonal issue, and I don't think it was police toning, I was actually like sounded annoyed,
Okay.
like objectively. So
I was about to say.
I can see why it was frustrating to them too.
Um, no, I think that's really cool of you because again, if you're constantly being disrespected, like what else are you supposed to do? You know, you're supposed to bring down the hammer and then everyone thinks that you're the problem for being so hard on them. But then it's like, uh, but did y'all not see what they did to me? You know, this is self-defense.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think about this one quote that I heard from this one podcast that I don't remember, but it was really good. Maybe it's from Hidden Brain by NPR with Shankar Vedantam. I love that podcast. So good. I learned so much from that podcast. And I think somebody said to move forward, sometimes you need to let your dreams die. And
Mm,
I was all like, oh shit, that's good, you know, especially when you're in a transitional phase in your life and you think you have these goals and dreams of like having a healthy, normal relationship with that family person that you're talking about,
mhm,
or um, a dream of me being best friends with Harry Potter forever, you know? But again, to move forward, sometimes you need to let your dream die because it's not feasible to hang on to that goal anymore because it just doesn't make any sense. Um, and I think one of the things for me was like letting to go back to the Harry Potter story was to let go of my dream of needing approval from my friends or needing anything from my friends really, because I feel like all that stuff from Harry Potter, and I could shit on Harry Potter all day and night, but I can't ignore like the shittiness that I've contributed on my own accord without Harry Potter. You know what I mean? So, and I think all of that stemmed from like my dream. That's a weird word to call it, my dream or goal of like, or desire of needing approval from my friends. And that's how it didn't come overnight. Um, but it came over time because I always like reflect back on that experience with Harry Potter because it was very difficult at the time on top of all the other shit that was going on in
mhm.
conjunction to that story. And so I was living with like a growing pain for like when did that Harry Potter thing start? 2016. 2016 to now. Like I've only come to like the true realization or the true feeling that I don't really need I shouldn't need anything from my friends. And that's not to say that like, oh, I don't want any friends anymore. Friends are stupid. Like, that's not to say that, but to say like friends are just there because they make me happy. And it's really as simple as that. And if they don't, then that's also pretty simple. And then I don't have to talk to them anymore. But ultimately, they're just there when I reach out to them. And if they reach out to me, that's cool. That makes me happy. But otherwise, everything in my life is going to be uh, through my own agency. Does that even make any sense?
Yeah, like you're doing things because you want to and not because you feel pressure to be a certain way or say certain things because you're around a friend.
Right. And I know that's so like easier said than done because literally, like I said, I've been working towards that unconsciously even up until now.
Right. So, do you feel like your friendship with Harry, um, let's see, how do you how do you think after your friendship with Harry ended has influenced you in deciding what friends to keep in your life if when you meet new people?
Yeah, so I have a pretty high standard now. Like if they say one thing that's a little bit off, maybe like one thing politically off, I'm like, oh, I gotta go. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I know how to be polite and civil, but I don't feel obligated to like reply to people if they text me or if they call me or whatever, which is great. And I don't feel obligated to hang out with people. This whole pandemic situation really helped with that
Oh, for
too.
sure.
And it's also made me, in my opinion, I feel like it's made me more assertive with my friends because Harry Potter was the first like breakup that I had to uh do
Yes. So you showed that
because
skin. You showed
yeah,
ass dirty skin.
yes.
Now you're fresh and glowing.
Yeah, and for those who didn't listen to the toxic friendship episode where I talk about this story, like I literally drove over to Harry Potter's house and I was like, we're not friends anymore. And he was all like, oh, okay. And I'm like, okay, bye. And then that was that. So and that was super hard, but I think after that, I'm like, it was hard, but it wasn't that hard. So I'm sure I could do it again. Or at least do some like less traumatic derivative of that if I need to, or if I feel the need to say something to somebody.
Right. And I think from my experience, what I do personally is I tend to hold in a lot of my frustrations. Just I don't know where I learned it from, my parents. But um
Just Asian immigrant parent things.
exactly. So that's something I'm continually trying to improve on because I don't want that for myself, nor do I want that those consequences or those outcomes towards my friends or family. And definitely, if I have kids, I don't want them to adopt or learn those behaviors because it's toxic AF. Okay.
Mhm.
So that's something that I feel like these growing pains helps me overcome is is holding things in because even with my family member, like I talked about, even though we're family and our we grew up with each other our entire lives, I still feel uncomfortable saying things because I'm scared to set them off
Mm.
or whatever. However, this was that was a breaking point for me. It was I don't care what the consequences are because I'm not going to be like an emotional punching bag anymore. And I feel like because I did that for myself, it translates to me having confidence in my other relationships with my friends or
Mhm.
family or work is that I'm just going to tell them how I feel because it's gonna hurt me inside if I don't let it out, and I don't wanna hurt myself.
Yeah, let's not do that. We
Yeah.
want to preserve Davi.
Exactly, and it's funny because most of the time, I catastrophize anyway, so I think something awful is gonna happen if I tell the truth, and it's fine.
Oh, so then it's almost like you have really low expectations on terms of like things going to shit, but then you do it and then the result is actually way better. So then it makes you feel a little happier.
Yes, exactly, but in the previous case, it actually did turn to shit, so
Right.
I've experienced the worst now, hopefully, so now everything else is not too bad.
Exactly. You're like, I could do anything now. Fuck this. Yeah. And I do want to say, Davi, like you were talking about, like going through with that hard stage or that growing pain in your life. Again, it's called a growing pain because it's never easy, nor is it celebratory, nor is it like fucking amazing. Like when you look back on it, it is kind of like amazing to think back on it. But in the moment and for maybe like even up to a couple years afterwards, it still fucking sucks to think about. So just to so I just want to say that based on your experience, and I think my experience too, it's good to kind of like face that growing pain because on the other side is something like better. On the other side, you can envision like a better life or better possibilities for yourself because you've gone through that. Because if you ignore the pain, then you're just staying, like we said at the top of the episode, stagnant and
Mhm.
comfortable in your own fuckery going on, you know?
Exactly. I think we're afraid of change. And I think you were talking about earlier was these beliefs that we have in our head that we've had for a long time was that you had a belief that you and Harry would be friends forever, right? I had a belief that my my family member and I would be on good terms forever until I get married, until I have a baby and that they'd be in my life. But I've had to confront that possibility of that not happening.
Mhm,
I mean, luckily, it's okay now.
mhm.
I think I forgot to tell you. It's okay now. They
Nice.
apologized. I won't
Yeah.
that's a different story, but they apologized sincerely. It was a good apology. And we're fine now. It's not the same, but it's way
Mhm.
better than before.
Yeah.
And now
Yeah.
I have good boundaries. So it's definitely it was worth it that I valued myself, held firm ass boundaries, and followed through. Because
Mhm.
I've wavered a little bit. That's why Larry had to be like, no, snap out
Mhm.
of it.
Yeah.
Stay focused.
Yes.
So it is rewarding, but it's challenging, really challenging.
It is. And I think we all naturally like retract from pain because duh, why would we want to go through something that feels like it sucks? So we just automatically like avoid it, you know?
Right.
But how would you know if something's like a growing pain versus just like a literal just pain in the ass to do?
Oh, I see. Like in grammar, there's like the past tense, and then there's like the ongoing past.
Okay.
With it being a pain, it kind of happens one time or happens one time every so often would be just a pain. And I think a growing pain is pretty predictable. Um, and you kind of know like it's coming soon.
Okay. I would say that if it's like something that's like super difficult to face and it like induces anxiety, it's usually something that's a growing pain. So it causes you a lot of distress. Um, because the fact that your body reacts in such like a visceral way speaks to like the importance of that action that you think needs to be taken, right? The transitional nature of that situation that you have to get through.
I think of my friend who's in a very male dominated work industry, and she is stressed every day. She gets anxiety attacks going to work because her immediate coworker is an ass and always
Mhm.
on her and like wants to have these daily meetings even though he's not her manager.
What the fuck?
Yeah, exactly. Fucking weird. I've had to like, help her through that and stuff like that. So that's definitely a growing daily pain. Yeah, is when your body is like, oh my God, I want to like curl up into a fetal position.
Mhm.
So I feel like work can bring that, and maybe even a toxic friendship that some people might be holding on to still, like even though you make plans, you don't really want to see them. And then I'm like, whoa, that's definitely a growing pain for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like when I wanted to go do that friend breakup with Harry Potter, like I said, it was not like a celebratory moment, nor was it like a fun moment. It wasn't like a yeah, you go Carolyn type of moment. It was not anything like that. Like I felt nervous and I felt sick and I felt sad. So, um I would say stuff like that. And maybe for your friend too, it's like something that needs to be done, causing them anxiety. Well, the current situation is already causing them anxiety, but maybe what's even more um like anxiety inducing is to talk to that coworker and be like, I don't want to have fucking daily meetings. What the fuck?
Mhm, mhm.
Um, which would I think be a step towards the right direction. But again, just doing that action or thinking about doing that action is like, oh my God, no. You know what I mean?
Right. I felt that at work. I was an RA in this clinical study at UCSD, and it was me trying to figure out psychology and what I wanted to do. So I had an internship, and every morning I just hated going. First of all, I had to take like 2 or I had to take, like, a bus, a trolley, and a bus to get to UCSD from San Diego State.
Yeah.
And the work, I didn't have very good guidance. It was just, "Hey, just read some articles about, like, like stress and thrombotic corroboration or something." I don't fucking know. It was, like, something so specific that I had no idea even how to even start, and I just felt, like, super uninterested, and I was not really buying into what I was studying. And the pressure was I was a part of a program that helped minority students get into research. So I felt like I owed a lot to the professors who brought me on, and it was a paid position. And she was pretty much she was an uptight person in
Mhm.
general, okay? And it was really I was really scared to tell her I didn't wanna be in the research program anymore because she's invested so much time in me. So those were growing pains because I was getting anxiety, thinking about going to work, thinking about emailing her. that I wanted to quit. It was just a really clear part of my life that I knew this is not what I wanted to do. And usually my body doesn't react like that to things I don't like doing, but that I kind of just knew if I continue this route, she'll think that I definitely want to be in a PhD program. I
Yeah.
do not want to be in a PhD program and suffer.
Right. Yeah. So it's really about doing. I actually, that's really interesting because it's like if you told her that you don't want to do it, well, that's literally doing something that would only benefit you, which is awesome.
Mhm.
But then it's like us, what's the word? Mm, doing something that might upset another person, even though it's at our expense, is something that makes us feel bad, even though it's the existing conditions are already to our detriment.
Exactly. It's just like another blow in which you have to do before you leave,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So, yeah, exactly. It's funny. It's kind of like having to face it is difficult because instead of, just quitting and leaving, for me at least, I wanted to do what I felt was right and talk to her over the phone
Mm-hmm.
and not just an email or text, you know?
Right.
So, but luckily, I think she kind of knew. And
Okay.
because I told her in the beginning I wanted to teach, like I want to have a PhD and then lecture and teach. And she's like, you're not going to be doing that much teaching.
Okay. I think another growing pain that I'm sure everyone has gone through is like breaking up with somebody.
Oh, for
I
sure.
like in a romantic way, you know. I already talked about the friend breakup thing. Breaking up with somebody, you need to let go of your dream that you
Yes.
will live a happy life with that
Oh my
person.
gosh, I have a story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and now I think about it, I do have a growing pain. Like, one of my previous exes and I were together for a long time. It was my longest relationship ever. We're about to be together for 2 years, and I really thought that I was going to marry him, and he was the one. But we were
Mm-hmm.
just having a lot of troubles as a couple, and he actually was like, "Hey, I want to go on a break," and I thought, "Oh my god, what? I don't believe in breaks,"
Me
but
neither. Go on.
right? However, I said, "Okay, like, yeah, let's do it. I just wanna make sure you have time and, clear your head, da, da, da." And then Monita and I went on the 2.5-week European spring break
Oh
be
yeah.
yeah, and during that time, I was like, "Oh, yeah, I can do whatever the fuck I want. I can, like, sleep with whoever I want. I'm gonna sleep with some European men," you know?
Yeah.
Never ended up happening, but whatever. I blame Monita, she's a cock block. I'm like, "Come on,
I
Monita,
know she
to
needs to be a
sleep."
better wing woman.
I
The
know,
fuck?
to sleep in the hallway for now, damn.
Literally. Monita, come on.
Just yeah, just kidding. Um, but during that time, I was having such a blast with Monita, and I feel like I neglected my friendships during that relationship, and I just remembered that I can be my own person and still have fun and not need a partner, and I just came to the conclusion, okay, if they wanna be on a break, that means they don't even wanna try. In my head, it meant that they don't even wanna try to work things out, they just want to not be with me for a few weeks. I just thought about all the times he's made me feel like shit and how his actions does not really represent a partner who actually will be there for me in the long run. And I finally came to terms with it and I felt so good. And I was like, you know what? When I come back, we're breaking up because I just knew it was going to
Mhm.
happen.
Yeah, and it's like to hang on to like the idea that you would still marry that person and like blah 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 would be like literally foolish at that point after everything that has happened, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think the most painful part about growing pains are those expectations and long term held beliefs that whatever would remain will remain. And it's not how the cookie crumbles.
Yes. Yeah, life changes all the time.
Yeah,
But I think that's kind of a cool thing.
I think so too. We're going to wrap up today's episode here. We want to hear from you. What are some growing pains that you've had in your life? Email us at just2asianwomen@gmail.com, DM us on Instagram at just2asianwomen podcast, or comment on our YouTube channel at just2asianwomen.
And you can find our podcast on Spotify, Anchor FM, and YouTube.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. If you enjoyed it, please consider sharing it with your friends or that European man you met in France. That would be awesome. You'll hear from us again next week. Again, my name is Davy.
And I'm Carolyn. And we're just
Just two
two Asian
Asian
women.
women.
Hi,
Bye.
everyone.